Welcome back to Rebuild Rescue. Today we wanted to show you this 1976 Jeep CJ5. The previous owner had rebuilt it, I believe 20 years ago, and ended up rolling it down a hill. We heard a story about it flipping, I think it was 3 times. The owner put it in his garage and it sat in there for the last 20 years. So we're gonna see if this thing runs today, and I think we're gonna drive it home after we figure out what all's wrong with it and after we figure out how to get it started. So when I saw this CJ advertised online, right away I thought it'd be a great idea to buy it. Just like every project I decide I'm gonna buy all of a sudden is a great idea, but these things are awesome. You know, if you want something that you can go off-road in, something that you can drive around when the weather's nice, this is it. I mean, these things are awesome. So it looks like this CJ5 has 360 cubic inch V8, an Edelbrock Performer intake. We got an Edelbrock 4-barrel carb. It's got an MSD coil in it, MSD ignition. It's all the stuff that I'd put in one that I was going to off-road. Look at the axles on these are huge. I don't know which one this is. I'm sure some of you guys would be able to tell me if this is a Dana 40 or a 60 or what axle it is, but it's just a nice straight axle, nice box tube frame. They do have, obviously back in 1976, they do have self-locking hubs. This has some worn locking hubs and drum brakes. We have long tube headers with some nice side exit mufflers. It's got a little pull here for the mosquitoes. A nice custom dash. Got your ProComp gauges, all your nice little buttons and stuff for all your creature comforts. And this whole tub is fiberglass. It's all aftermarket, so you don't have to worry about it rusting or anything like that. It does have the attachment points here. This goes all the way up onto the roll cage. The frame here is tweaked really hard. Actually, the whole axle is tweaked back. You're right over here. This is over probably about 6 inches. So we're going to shift this whole axle before we try to drive it home, because it is about a 1/4 inch from hitting the frame rail. We'll loosen up the shackles on her, maybe take some of the ratchet straps I have with me and move this back, because I definitely don't want to try to drive it that way. And I have, probably about 150 miles to drive. It's going to be interesting enough to do it without a windshield, because unfortunately when it rolled, it decided to fling the windshield right off of it. But we do got good mirrors, so that's a plus. So here's the hood. It's a fiberglass one-piece design. I don't know why it has these latches on. It's got like fake hood latches. This is actually made to tilt up on its nose here. You can see where it's cracked right up through here. I think a little bit of fiberglass and a little bit of old school ingenuity. This will be good as new. For the ride home, we're gonna have to figure out how we can attach this, because I think I can drive without a windshield, but I don't know if they'd be too happy about me driving without a hood. So we're gonna try to find some way to get this hooked on. I got some ratchet straps and some duct tape. So I think we'll figure out some way to keep it on. You know, the question is after 15 years of sitting in the back of a barn, is it gonna start and is it gonna run? I don't know, but we'll see. All right, so let's get some lube on these things here. Loosen them up a bit. We'll let that soak in so I'm not twisting out any spark plugs in the heads. One of the things I like to do is try to get all this stuff lubed up that's going to need lubed up so it can set in and then loosen up so we're not breaking too much. Always good to get all the linkage, the cables. I'm even going to go ahead and we're going to pop this cap off, so I'm going to make sure these are nice and lubed up. And I know we're going to need to shift this axle over too, so these are really rusty, which has me a little bit worried. Kind of wonder if there's going to be any brakes at all. Hey, pup. Are you coming to help? Hi. I love dogs. I wish I could have my dog around while I was doing this. Well, we got the water out. That was easy enough. So what's the chances it'll start today? What do you think? After that many years, was it 20?
20, yeah.
20 years. 50-50? I think 50-50 is a safe bet. All right, a Holly on there too. Oh, Holly 650, awesome. It's a single pump, right? Yeah. Nice. Yeah, but that's all nice and loose. Throttle linkage is loose. Let me see if the throttle pedal works. All right, looks like I won't have a stuck throttle. That's good. Got some nice stainless fuel lines. That is like one of the biggest clutch return springs I have ever seen. All right, let's see if we got any coolant in it. Yeah, looks like she's a little low. It's always like the magical time if you see if the coolant runs out the bottom of the radiator or if it runs out the bottom of the block. I think when it was rolled, I think a little bit might have come out of the radiator. All right, well, we got almost a gallon, which this probably holds 2, so that's actually a good sign. Make sure we don't spill any here with the puppy running around. All right, we'll get some in the overflow. There's a little bit in there too, so that's another good sign. All right, let's check the oil. I can figure out where the dipstick is. Well, it's over there. All right, so we needed about a gallon of antifreeze. So let's see how much oil it needs. My guess is 2 quarts. One quart, I was wrong. Awesome, and actually it looks pretty clean. A little black. Get some oil in there. So normally, it'd probably be smart to put fresh oil in, to put a filter on, to change it, but according to my ex-mother-in-law, she says I'm not so smart anyway.
You'll never be good enough for him.
So we're just gonna throw some of this stuff in there and see if that works. So that stuff's thick. As long as it makes it home. Obviously, we'll change the oil later. All right. Yeah, I think there's 2 ways that you can prepare something that hasn't been driven in a long time. First is the very thorough and complete way where you check every little thing and you know everything's going to go well. And then you can do it the way that I'm doing it today, which is how quick can we get it running and driving? Because I'm so excited to see what it's like to drive. So, all right, so we got oil. We don't need to put transmission fluid in because it is a 4-speed, which is awesome. I am gonna pull the fuel filter off and I'm gonna stick a clear one in so I can see if anything is coming from the tank. But the owner did tell me, I believe, that he stuck a brand new tank on it, so it probably only has a few tanks of fuel through it. So I may not even need to do that. Let's go see what the gas smells like in the tank. And that's always a great way to figure it out, right? the sniffer test. Definitely stale, but it's actually not too bad. Well, I guess for the sake of me walking on the highway.
Whoa, what's that?
Hey, double bubble. Come on, baby, I'll give you a ride. Let's go.
I guess I might as well put a filter in there. Are you the helper today? Are you the helper today, huh? Are you the helper today? Does the puppy come with the Jeep? Dude, you can get me off of a project in seconds. I will totally forget what I'm doing. Yes, I should be doing videos on puppy dogs. Puppy dog rescue, I think that's the next one. All right, let's get this fuel filter off. I'll put a clear one in there, that way we can see if anything's coming up through here and I'm tripped. Listen to my confidence. Like we're actually gonna get it running today and it's actually gonna work. It's either ignorance or confidence. I'm not sure, maybe a little bit of both. We're not gonna ask the ex-mother-in-law about that one though. She's dry. I brought some hose with today. We'll get some new pieces of hose on here. Actually, I'm surprised they look as good as they do for being as old as they are. Last thing I want is fuel spewing on these nice open headers while I'm cruising down the highway with the wind in my hair. Oh, I don't have hair, but anyway, you know what I mean. So before I connect these, I'm gonna wait a bit because I want to see if, while I'm turning it over, if it'll pump fuel out of here since it was completely dry. So we'll wait till we get these spark plugs out and get some lubrication in the cylinders. One thing that's nice about working on old vehicles, or older vehicles, I guess this is only a year older than me, which I guess makes me old, but anyway, is you don't need as many tools. So your tool supplies are a lot less. Oh, that's an awesome sign. It's coming out easy. Ooh. Well, it's a good burn. A little dirt on her. Nothing that a wire brush isn't going to fix. All right, let's get the rest of these out. Interesting engine mount that it has. Looks like we went with the one bolt. This one here that's kind of just hanging out there. I guess that was an extra on the Jeeps. I didn't know about that option. Oh, I think it looks beautiful. Wow, it looks almost brand new. I mean, you can tell it's an older plug, but it looks to be in really good shape. Yeah, they look good. Oh yeah. Oh. Well, that's not a good sign. I think I might need a spark plug. Question is, will it fire like that? And that was totally my fault because I was being lazy and using a ratchet, electric ratchet instead of using a hand ratchet. I think we can still get it to fire though, because these, I believe the porcelain on this is a heat dissipator, and just to fire it up will be okay. A little bit of love for the cylinders and the rings here. Plugs are actually firing really nice. I got a perfect burn. When I used to race sprint cars, that was like what we looked for. If I had that, I knew I was fast. Get a little extra in that one. While we're waiting for those cylinders to loosen up, let's see if we can get a battery and see if it makes the right kind of sparks. It's probably the first time in, well, depending on how long the old battery lasted, the first time I'd say in 15 years, maybe it lasted 5 years, that this thing's going to have juice to it. So I'll keep an eye on the wires and everything. There's a little corrosion on them, and everything looks really good, so I don't expect to see any smoke or melt, but I've been surprised before. Wait a second here. I almost did it. I almost hooked them up backwards. So that wouldn't have been good. Let me flip this battery around. That's what you gotta love about working on an older vehicle. A newer vehicle, there's only gonna be one battery that fits, and it's not gonna be the right one at the parts store, and the tray's only gonna be so big. But on an older vehicle, tray's plenty big. There's all kinds of clearance. I don't know how that works. I think we went backwards along the way. All right, no big sparks. It's a good sign. Maybe we'll make that a little tighter. Good stuff. I don't think that's going to fall out. So what's the chances that spark plug works anymore? What do you think?
Honestly, I mean, isn't that the only part that really matters?
Yeah, so as long as this is attached, it'll still work. This, like I said, this just gets rid of heat.
Yeah.
The porcelain part there.
Does it get hot enough that that thing would start melting?
The wire, yeah. Yeah, so we'll have to replace it to drive it, but
Yeah.
starting it, I think it'd be fine. All right, so we got the battery in, it's connected. We didn't have any smoke, no bad sparks. We had some good sparks, but no bad sparks. We got some stuff down in the engine. It feels extra tight though. I'm a little bit worried about using the starter to try to tick it over. I feel like I should put a wrench on the crank and turn it over a bit, but that'd be too much work. So I'm just gonna use the key. All right, let's see if we got power. We have starter engagement. Guess I should take it out of gear too. The nice thing about having, again, some of these older vehicles is the starter solenoid isn't on the starter, so they're separate. So instead of reaching down on the starter and crossing some wires and stuff to get it to start, you can do it right here. I just gotta figure out which one it is, which it should be crossing these two here. Should do it. So if I was a fancy mechanic and I really knew what I was doing, I'd probably have a starter switch on a wire with a button, but I'm not, so I use 2 screwdrivers. Make sure I don't get ran over here. It's out of gear. I think we have a doctor anyway, so we should be good. Yeah, that's the starter's locked up. Let me get my adjustable hammer. This ought to do it. Well, let's see what kind of nut is on the end of the crank. See if I can turn it by hand. Looks like we got about a 3/4 inch bolt. It's bad when you've been working on stuff long enough, you can look at the picture of a bolt and know what size it is. Whoop. I can take the crank pulley off if I want. Yeah, she's tight. Yeah, she got some rust in there. If I had my Escalade here, I took a tow strap to it and I'd pull it backwards in gear. I might have to talk him into getting out his truck. So we couldn't get it to turn over with the switch. I couldn't turn it over by the crank. I was worried about breaking the bolt off. So I'm gonna run to the parts store. I'm gonna grab a spark plug, or maybe a set of spark plugs, you know, because I did break one and they are older. I put more lubrication in the cylinders because it's solid, it's stuck tight. I think we're gonna let that soak in. We're gonna go get the parts to get an extra starter or two, and then come back and you know, do what anybody would do, which would be pull it with a truck and try to get it to start. So we couldn't get the engine to turn over by turning the crank by hand or by the starter. I don't know if the starter's bad. I don't know if the engine is just locked up that solid. Luckily, we have some help here, and he's willing to use his truck, his newer truck, to give this thing a pull. So we're gonna hook a chain to it and we're gonna put it in gear and just try to unlock the motor. I do feel if we can unlock the engine, we can move forward and hopefully get this thing running. Really appreciate your help. He was like, I didn't know I was gonna be pulling my Jeep today. It's awesome.
You want to pull it forward?
Yeah. Actually, I think we could probably, just to get it unlocked, yeah, just kind of lurch it front, yeah. And look, he already has a hitch on. He's set. All right. Ooh, that roll bar's a little low. All right, let me get it in gear here. All right, let's try it. All right, hold up a second. There we go. The engine definitely moved over some. All right, it spit some stuff out, which is a plus.
Saw a fan turning.
So the engine did unlock, it did rotate. Obviously we don't have plugs in or anything like that. So the only thing I can try to do yet is get the starter to turn over. Maybe, you know, hit it a couple times or make sure it has voltage and stuff down to it. If it doesn't turn over that way, the only other thing would do would be to like pull it and pop start it and stuff. And if it was a healthy vehicle, I would do that, but it's not a healthy vehicle yet, so it doesn't really make sense to do that. And something I didn't consider is the parts stores don't carry parts for old vehicles. I'm not sure why I didn't think about that. I guess because I kind of forgot it's some old vehicle. I'll check the voltage and see if I can't get the starter to turn over. It's a 9/16 or a ½ inch. It's like a half. I remember when these boxes first came out, it was like the next best thing, and it really upgraded all those ignition systems and stuff. All right, so I pulled the hot lead to the starter directly off the starter relay. I'm just gonna give it a straight jolt and see what that does. First, I'm gonna make sure it's out of gear though, which it wasn't. The reason I know to check that is because I've ran people over like that before. We have nothing. Oh. Now we do. So what that was a short. Yeah, so it's starter's definitely locked up. It is not doing anything. I'll hit it with a hammer a couple more times. That always, if it doesn't fix it, at least makes you feel better. These are just love taps. Best adjustable wrench ever. We might get this thing started yet. Oh, that's gas. That's a good sign. I forgot about that. So it is pumping gas. Judging by this huge puddle of gas that I missed because I was so excited to see everything else going. I'm glad there's no spark out here. Awesome. We're gonna get this thing running after all. All right, let's get this fuel filter on here. We'll get the plugs in and see where we're at. That is actually so funny because how many times does hitting something with a hammer actually work? Right. I had a bone, I don't even know what you call it, like implant a couple weeks ago up in here. And I was awake for it. And they requested was it a mallet? I don't know. It was something that made me feel a little bit nervous. And then proceeded to hit something that crunched and popped, and obviously it was in my face, so it seemed to crunch and pop a little bit more than it should have.
Go get the sledgehammer.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my face is jarring, so yeah, that wasn't the funnest thing I've ever had done. Not the worst either, though. So I like using these clear fuel filters on something that hasn't been driven in a long while, because then you can see the color of the fuel. You can kind of see how old it is, which I already saw this is very yellow, which is very old. But it'll allow you to see the dirt as well, and if you get a bigger filter, it'll allow the dirt to sit underneath the paper element, so it's not clogging the filter up right away. And you'd have to expect on something older, it's gonna clog. All right, let me hook up the starter solenoid. So I think that's, kind of a, something to think about, when you're working on something. Just hit it with a hammer a couple times. It'll probably fix it. That always makes me jump. Well, that part works, so we can get it to start. Probably just need a new solenoid. All right, we'll come back to that later. So I don't have any anti-seize for these fire sticks, so I'm at least going to put some grease on them. For the next guy that has to take them out in 15 years has an easier job of it. Nothing worse than breaking off a spark plug in a head. Ooh. Man down. See if that starter will actually turn over. It might be a little weak too, so we'll see if it's able to turn over the motor with a little compression. All right. Spark plugs are in. There's fuel getting up the carb, so I'm going to dump some fuel straight down inside the carb, and I'll probably use these screwdrivers here to short the starter again because the ignition still isn't working, which is going to make it hard to pump the gas at the same time. But yeah, we'll get it spinning over and see what it does. All right. Let's get some fuel down in here. Oh. That was a lot. Well, she's got plenty of fuel in it. All right, it's out of gear. I still gotta have the ignition on. There's nothing coming on in the dash either. So I'm kind of wondering if there might be a fuse or something out. Come to think of it. Oh, horn marks. That might be why the starter's not working. But we'll see. Wow. Well, that starter definitely wasn't enjoying its task. I would definitely say it's time for a starter because it should also turn over a lot faster than that, and definitely shouldn't weld the screwdriver. So I think it'll probably be best if we call it a day, grab a starter, and get ready to put a starter in it and whatnot, and then see if it turns over the way it's supposed to. If not, then throw it up on a trailer and get it in the shop and tear it apart and figure out what's going on. But good things, the engine turns over, everything looks clean, everything looks complete. I got so excited I didn't even pull the cap off and see how clean it is. So got to do that yet. The brakes did work. I didn't run into the truck pulling me, so that's good. So I think the brakes will at least work well enough to slow down. So yeah, we'll get some more parts